In a recent seminar, I was talking with participants about how our worldview is shaped by patterns that we get used to over the years. After we get used to seeing things a certain way, we expect that this is the truth, the way that things are supposed to be. Then, when we see something in a new way, it strikes us as odd or maybe just plain wrong. Take, for example, this map of the world. For my American audiences, it probably looks odd. You're thinking, that's not how the world looks. It should look like this. This is what I'm used to. This is what I grew up with. This is how the world should be. So, can you guess which country of the world uses maps like this in their elementary school geography textbooks? If you're guessing Japan, you're right. It's only natural for all of us to put ourselves at the center of everything. Going back to this other map, who do you think drew it up? Well, look at who's in the center. Europe. So, cartographers, that's a fancy word for map makers, cartographers from Europe drew this up and put themselves at the center. There are a couple of problems with this map I'd like to point out. Perhaps after this conversation, I can convince you to get yourself a brand new map. There is an imaginary line that we draw around the center of the Earth. It's called the equator. The root of this word has equal in it, since it's supposed to divide the Earth into equal hemispheres, north and south. Do you notice the problem? This equal line is not anywhere near the middle of the map. It makes the whole northern hemisphere look more important than the southern hemisphere. When we realize this, we have to ask, who drew up this map? Oh yeah, that's right. It was the Europeans. They put themselves at the center and made their hemisphere more important than the other hemisphere. But as school kids in geography class, we didn't notice because our teacher said this was the way things were, and we accepted it. But what else did we accept without even realizing? That we were at the center of everything, that we're bigger and more important than other people in those other countries. Let's take a look at a new world map. This one is called the Peters projection. It was developed by Arno Peters, who thought we should try to present the world more fairly. Do you notice that the equator is now in the middle? I know the shapes look a little long and distorted. That can happen when you try to represent a ball, the Earth is a sphere after all, as a flat rectangle. More important to our conversation is Peters' correcting of past misrepresentations of size. According to measurements, Scandinavia is 0.4 million square miles, compared to India's 1.3 million square miles. So India is about 3 times the size of Scandinavia. Which map looks more accurate, the traditional map or the Peters map? Alaska is 0.6 million square miles compared to 0.7 for Mexico. Which map looks more accurate to you? The traditional map or the Peters map? One final example. Europe's landmass is 3.8 million square miles, while South America measures 6.9 million square miles, almost twice as big as Europe. Which map more accurately reflects this size difference? The traditional map or the Peters map? When we start to recognize discrepancies like this, we need to ask who is responsible. In this case, Europeans had an interest in representing the world in ways that suited their needs, even though that this is not fair. Now that you've seen that you may be looking at the world in the wrong way, it might be time to get a new map for your home and for school children around the world, so that everyone can begin to see themselves as they actually are.
Thank you so much for having me, Alan.
You bet. So tell us a little bit about your personal immigrant story.
My first time I came to America was 2001. I came to Disney. I was an intern and I worked there for 1.5 years.